I'm going to for Tulsi real quick. Ever since the U.S. has put up the Iran deal, the relationship between the two countries has not been the best. Recently, the United States has sent, I believe it was a carrier group into the Persian Gulf ever since the increased Iran aggression has occurred. I know you're very anti-intervention. What would you do right now, as if you were president, to improve the relationship between the United States and Iran? And what do you see maybe happening between now and the election between us and Iran? Do you see maybe a possible war at all?
I think it's really dangerous, the steps that this administration is taking to push us closer and closer to a war against Iran. President Trump says that's not what he wants, but in fact that is exactly what he wants. And when you look at who is surrounding him and pushing him into that war, people like John Bolton and Nikki Haley and others, we see that that is clearly their intent. As president, I would re-enter the Iran nuclear deal that Trump withdrew from. That was really the kicking off point that has escalated these tensions, not only between the United States and Iran, but with all of the other countries that were signatory to the deal, and the countries that the United States is now threatening with sanctions if they do any business with Iran at all. All of this has made both the United States, the American people, and the world less safe as Iran is reacting and saying, hey, they're going to start putting things in motion to begin their nuclear weapons program. Once again, the thing that the Iran nuclear deal sought to prevent from happening. So we've got to de-escalate these tensions and recognize that a war against Iran that this administration is pushing for would be devastating. Devastating for the Iranian people, the people in the region. It would be incredibly costly on our troops, on our military families, on the American people, with the money that would be spent on this war, create more instability in the region, create a worse refugee crisis across Europe, strengthen terrorist groups like ISIS and Al-Qaeda, making our country less safe, undermining our national security, what to speak of, once again, the nuclear threat that this would pose.
Yeah, really quick.
Yes, she's next.
Okay. Hi, and thank you for being here again. As you may know, there are escalating tensions right now at the Venezuelan embassy in DC. As we speak, the U.S. Armed Forces were trying to get in and actually managed to get in and take some of the people out. Right now, we got word that there are some of the embassy protectors still there right now. What will you do as a president and a presidential candidate to help with our relationship against interventionism in Venezuela and kind of calm the tensions that are arising right now? Because the last thing we need is to get involved in another regime change war, as you constantly talk about.
Yeah. I'm going to continue as a presidential candidate to speak out against the actions that leaders in our government are taking to drive the United States into this regime change effort, this regime change war, threatening the use of military force to topple the government in Venezuela. The United States needs to keep our hands off Venezuela and let the Venezuelan people determine their own future. And as president, I would continue that policy, both in countries like Venezuela and others, and end these destructive and wasteful regime change wars that have proven so costly on us, the American people, on our troops and service members and their families, and have proven to cause more problems, increase suffering, increase instability for the people in the countries where we wage these wars. In Latin America especially, we only have to look to history to see what happens when the United States comes in and tries to act as the world's police, toppling governments and leaders and dictators that they don't like. It is the people who always end up suffering the most, both in the short term as well as the long term.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My question
Do you have a
is-
question? Do you have a question?
I do have a question.
Just go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, today, as you undoubtedly know, the U.S. government, in violation of the Vienna Conventions, raided the Venezuelan embassy and making, I think, all of our embassies less safe around the world. What is your reaction to the raid?
I'm not up to speed on exactly what happened there today, but I'm concerned for what we've seen happening progressively over the last few days and the way that those peace warriors have been treated there.
Go ahead.
Well, at first, I just want to say I respect you so much. You're the only candidate I have respect for in your citizens here. I'm so
Thank
grateful for
you.
you and everything you say. I thought I was
Thank
going to have more time, so I'm going to go with my more challenging question. When you look at the foreign policy of the United States government and the havoc it's created under the banner of good intentions, does it make you skeptical of giving that same government sweeping power in other areas of our lives, like healthcare, education, and the economy?
I think what matters most is making sure we have the right kind of leadership in our government, that our government is fulfilling its role and responsibility, which is acting in the best interest of our people. So whether you look at our national security, our foreign policy, or our domestic policy, as long as we keep that in the forefront, and we have leaders who are embodying the values of service above self, service to the American people ahead of any other interest, then we can fulfill that mission. If we have leaders, as we do now, who are undermining that mission by serving either themselves, their own political interests, their own political parties, special interest corporations, or even other countries and other governments, then this is where the problems begin, and this is why we're seeing the challenges that we see, both in foreign policy as well as domestic policy.
And then to follow up real quick, I promise. In the event that you don't win, considering the way politics has been going in this country for a very long time, are there any non-political solutions?
Have some hope.
Have
some hope.
Well, that's my question. Are there any non-political solutions that people can take in their everyday lives to challenge the empire, to challenge this giant government violent apparatus?
Well, look, we've got a standing room only crowd here tonight, people who are gathering because they understand that it is only when we the people rise up to demand the kind of change that we seek to bring that puts people ahead of profits, that puts people ahead of politics. This is the only way that we make this kind of change. So yes, it's casting your vote at the ballot box. It's getting great people to run for office. It's making phone calls, sending text messages. It's being involved in helping to inform others about the issues that we face. There is so much that we can, that we must do to shape the kind of future that we need to see. Thank you.
What's your why?
To be of service. To be of service. I experienced from a young age that I was most happy and most fulfilled when I was doing things for other people rather than just for myself. And so throughout my life, I've made my decisions and I'm inspired by these principles and values of putting service above self. Thank you.
So my very last question I have heard you say one of the things that I think we all find very interesting is in the speech you actually said that you actually get attacked mostly by Democrats and mainstream media and established Democrats and not Republicans. I've actually seen you go on a show with Tucker Carlson. You guys have almost agreed on a lot of things. What did you mean by, so you maybe explain to voters at home in the audience, what do you mean by you're getting attacked mostly by your own party and the mainstream media?
That the issues that I am raising in this campaign are challenging the foreign policy establishment. We are challenging the status quo. We are challenging the military-industrial complex. And what we see in Washington is an entrenched establishment that have been across both political parties that have either benefited from or are working with those entrenched parties. So we are in our quest to end these regime change wars, to end this new Cold War and nuclear arms race, we're shining the light on the truth about how these policies have negatively impacted the American people, which is why we're seeking to change them.
That's all we have time for. Thank you.
Thank you guys, really appreciate it.
Everybody out, please